Hello everybody, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to the channel. I'm just super compelled to share with you this organized chaos in the plant world in my fish room. This is the 12-gallon bookshelf aquarium. It's made by Lifeguard Aquatics, which you can find online, and it's about 15-20% cheaper than very similar aquariums from, say, UNS. So a really good low iron glass fish tank in the wonderful shape and size, 12 gallons, a really great footprint to work with, not too big, not too small. Anyway, though, the reason I'm talking about this tank, because I've shared that other information a lot, is this beautiful bit of organized chaos in the plant matter, especially what's coming up above the water, the immersed growth. It's just fabulous. Especially, look at these, well, not especially, I mean, where do you begin, right? But let's start with these stems of what I thought were Rotala, a classic common Rotala. The emerged form looks a lot like Bacopa, though, a more firm stem and the leaf extensions and the space between them, but I'm pretty sure it is a Rotala. I'll show you what it looks like in its submerged form, as I have some growing elsewhere, and I'll bring the camera back down to it. But I took some cuttings, literally, that I got, and they weren't even cuttings. When I was at my favorite LFS, Ocean Design Aquarium, here on the northwest side of Chicago, the fabulous proprietor, Tony, and his wife works there too. What a wonderful couple. Anyway, he was doing a major clean on one of his show tanks, one of his display tanks, and he had cut a bunch of this plant, which was both in and out of the water in his aquarium, and literally had a pile of these stems sitting on the floor. And they had been there about an hour, and they were just kind of a wilty piled mess. And I asked him if I could have some, and he said, be my guest. And so I just grabbed a few, and I literally put them in my pocket. Sort of like when I'm snipping pothos at a doctor's office or something, I just kind of swipe a little stem. And I did the same thing with these, of course, with his permission. And then I stuck them into this beautiful puff ball, almost like it has that Wabakusi effect, if I'm saying that right. But that's not what this is. That's a piece of driftwood under the water in the tank, where I put Java fern, excuse the reflection, I put Java fern here over a year and a half ago, and then I had some red root floaters, duckweed, frogbit across the top, and the red root floaters over time climbed up over the driftwood, and left alone, they just started growing in this fashion. A wonderful bush, although I could pull them out as fronds and they would look much more like when you see the floaters on the aquarium, so it's not all stuck together like a shrub. And I don't want to do that right now and pull stuff out. Just, you know, that's how it's behaving and how it's growing. But it's the same plant as what was floating on the surface. The red color all went away, and that was a bummer, but this growth eventually occurred, and that was the opposite of a bummer. Super cool. I also have this pothos stem that I had thrown in the back behind that stick there, and it has made its way through the tangle as well, and now it's coming out, extending over the tank. I generally have problems with this white and green variety, but this particular stem is doing good. This crinkle effect is part of its morphology, but if I go over here, I can show you how the light has definitely burned and withered some of these leaves. Of course, I spritz about twice a week, but you know, it is close to the light. Yet the stems, the roots, as I've highlighted in the past, are doing just extremely fabulous. So I know the plant's okay, even if some of the leaves are taking a beating here. I have some of that rotala that looks like bacopa coming up out of the tangle here too, and you can see this stem following the wonderful piece of bogwood that is literally draped over this aquarium. And behind that draped over piece, which I just set on top and balanced it over almost 2 years ago, is more pothos, different varieties in the back. In a previous video, I talked about how the leaves, at least from this stem, get really monstrous. And I cut 3 monstrous ones off, and now I've got another one there. Now, it's not Monstera. That's a plant I love but do not keep at this time for no particular reason. But these pothos leaves, in a way, are acting like that plant and the appropriate namesake, Monstera. So that's a monster leaf. And the reason I'm filming all this and talking about it is it's highly likely in the coming days I'll be doing some snipping and pulling and pruning and cutting, because as much as I love this organized chaos, the organized part does come into play eventually. You gotta do what you gotta do. In my previous video, I talked about that very thing with the tank just below here. So you can review that if you wanna see how I'm thinking about and pondering the immense, robust plant growth and livestock in this aquarium. But what struck me up here, and I never want this to change, is how cool this effect is. It's a little bit unnatural. I don't know if in nature these plants would ever grow together or in this, form function. But when we tinker and play and do our water gardening and our aquascaping, things like this happen. Cool, magical things like this can happen. And you can manipulate and toy with it, let it sit for a while. I do have CO2 in this aquarium, although I can't see the bubbles anymore. I know it's being fed some CO2, and I'm using one of Oase's, I think their smallest filter that has the built-in heater, and it's doing a bang-up job for me. And obviously at this point, I don't really even probably need a filter, just a little bit of water movement because of the intense amount of plants and all those roots that are coming down across the whole aquarium. Not to say nothing of the floating variety of some of these plants and the other ones, and of course duckweed, which I pull out all the time, but you know how that is. But it kind of has a really cool sort of bog effect over here. Really nifty swamp effect. And since I took out the plants that require high light from the back there, and I did put in some Helferi. One of them has become uprooted. It's that plant there, and you can see the roots there. And this plant will grow happily floated, and it's very tolerant to a whole bunch of conditions. And at this point, I didn't even notice that had become uprooted till I told you in real time. Just to go over again the livestock, there is a crap ton of Neocaridina shrimps, the wild variety, cherry, blue dream, blue bolt, orange and yellow. There could be 100 in here, which is fabulous. There's some red ones flitting about. They're all over. There's a black or a blue one. The fish are a group of chili rasboras. Let's see if I can find them. Usually they are in a wonderful little tight mass right up in front. But now, because I'm not feeding, I'm gonna go in. They're in that tangle. Look at that. Is that just the coolest thing? Even without a suitable focus, you kind of get the idea of how cool that effect is with all those roots, which, by the way, are now happily into the substrate. And so they're drawing both the one from the water column, from the substrate, and who knows. It's not that I don't care, I just don't mind whatever gets them through the day and night is working for me. Because now both sides of this aquarium are so cool to behold. So I strongly encourage folks, it's not just what's in the glass box. That's your priority, obviously, and it's where most of us, if not all of us, start. But over time, like when one plant comes above the water line, you're like, oh my God, look at that. A flower, a lily, a bacopa. And then you're like, I saw a video and I could put a piece of wood in the back and maybe sort of balance it against the tank. And did that, checked that box. And well, I saw Stefan just put a piece of driftwood right on top and just balanced it and then put some moss on it. Then he spritzes it. And then the water is always testing super good and my filtration needs become nil. You just start to make all these realizations, you have these epiphanies, and you become super excited and enthused about the hobby, and it adds a whole new level. It's like 2.0, a water garden, water gardening with fish keeping. You know, this tank in particular, you could say is a water garden with some fish in it. There's some of those chili rasboras. There's also neon green rasboras. That's the fish back there. Some clown killies. There's a female right there. They have had babies in here, and why wouldn't they? I haven't seen a little one in some time. There's a couple gold mystery snails. A little big if you were trying to work for scale here, but they seem so happy. And like I said, this doesn't necessarily occur in nature in any way. Maybe these mystery snails are too big for this setting in terms of aesthetics, but whatever, in totality, it all seems to be working. This tank is a crowd pleaser for sure. And I've told you, most people immediately comment on all the plants before they even ever can find some of the fish, let alone the shrimp. There's other things in here, folks. Pygmy coreodoras, otocinclus catfish. This is one of those kinds of aquariums that if I ever did take it down, God forbid, I would probably find something I completely forgot that I put in here, or babies of fish, like the chili rasboras that had somehow survived and now were sub-adults, something like that. Occasionally I see, and I imagine this will increase in the spring because of the light and all this emerged growth, I see little types, I don't want to say fruit flies, but sort of little harmless gnats and things would be flying around, even inside an apartment. And they don't bother anything else in the apartment, but something has attracted them to this little ecosystem. I look at it as a good sign. It doesn't bother me if a couple small insects have found their way into this system. Certainly hasn't affected my household. My wife hasn't complained about it. If you have any questions or want to learn more about these plants or some of the things I did or the equipment I use, by all means hit me up. And until then, folks, always keep your hands in the tank. And ciao for now.